Turn the Facebook connection.
Sure.
Mm. Yeah. Who's following? I see it's a little bit behind, but it's a little bit behind. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be unto you all. We are finished with ayah number 96, surah number 17. And today we are resuming from ayah number 97, the same surah, surah number 17. So in the previous ayah, the conclusion of the discussion that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Prophet Muhammad to forward his last word to those who deny him. Number 96, he says, "Say, O Muhammad, Allah is enough of a witness between me and you. He knows it all, and he is the expert when it comes to his servants, and he sees all what they do." Number 97, and he that Allah guides, he is the one who is certainly guided. And he who goes astray, you will never find for them supporters or helpers besides Allah. And we will gather them on the day of judgment on their faces, blind and dumb and deaf, which means as they gave a blind eye to our revelation, we will gather them as blind. As they pretended to be dumb, we will gather them as dumb. As they pretended that they cannot hear and they acted deafly, then they will be gathered as deaf. So, as we always mention, when the Quran uses these words, it has a deeper meaning than the physical position of the person. It is about their attitude towards the revelation. It is like when the Quran talks about people on day of judgment, that some faces will turn dark black. It is not about the color of the skin. It is about the gloomy faces when they are faced with the torment and the punishment, and they cannot smile. They will be in awe of everything. So their face will turn black. It doesn't mean that a black skinned person is a target. That is not the meaning. And then their fate will be Jahannam, the hellfire, which whenever the fire goes dim, we will give it more flames. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing as a punishment for those who deny the message, despite the fact they understand it is message from Allah. They understand that the Prophet is a true prophet, that the Quran is from God, but they decide, for whatever reason, to deny all of this, to ignore it, brush it aside. They will come on the day of judgment, and they will pay a very high price. Ayah number 98, this is their recompense because they have denied and rejected our signs and miracles and proofs and evidence. And they said, is it true that when we turn into bones and ashes, that we are going to be resurrected a new creation? So their denial of resurrection, which led them to deny Allah, to deny His Messenger, because Allah says, you will be resurrected. The Prophet says, we will be resurrected. So they say, bring our fathers. Our fathers have died years ago. If they were to be resurrected, We should see them. Where are they? So the reasoning is flawed and their assumptions are flawed. The Quran, when it talks about resurrection, it doesn't talk about resurrecting people while others are alive. It talks about resurrection on the day of resurrection, which is what we call the day of judgment. So they are kind of like just spinning an empty cup, wanting to get something out of it. So then, ayah number 99, Allah raises a rhetorical, thought provoking questions. Haven't they seen that Allah, the one who created heavens and earth, is capable to create a creation similar to them? And He has an appointed time for them that is certain. But the wrongdoers have rejected everything but their denial. The only thing they have is denial. They don't have an idea, they don't have any counter argument to make. They are just using false assumptions, employing false logic, which leads to false premises and false conclusions. So, ayah number 100, it says, Say, O Muhammad, if you were the ones who control and own the treasures of mercy of my Lord, then you would have held back lest it is going to be spent. And man is created as a stingy creature. We are selfish and stingy. Selfish that everyone wants everything good for themselves. Stingy that when we get what we want and it's more than what we need, we still want to hold on lest it becomes less. So we are afraid even of ourselves. Man is created and the shaitan is instilling fear in us. If you spend, you will become poor. What are you going to do about your bills? How do you cover this and this and this? So the shaitan, when it inspires us, it makes us afraid. And because of that fear, we have a total controlling sense of insecurity that is gripping us. And the Quran is inviting us to be rational. The Quran never told us to spend all what we have. The Quran always says, spend from what you have, which means some of it. It doesn't mean that you become completely reckless and spend everything you have to the last penny. Allah is saying, spend from what we have, which should inspire us to save some money for emergency, because emergencies are part of life. But we should not calculate emergencies haphazardly. We should be rational. So if you save as much as you pay for zakah, then that's fine. But if you save much more than what you actually may need, then that also becomes reckless on the side of being stingy. So if you truly have control and ownership of the treasures of mercy of God, you would have held back for fear of spending it all, and man is a stingy creature. And number 101, and we have provided Moses with 9 signs and proofs and miracles that were very clear. So ask the children of Israel, as Moses came to them, and Pharaoh told him, O Moses, I think that somebody did some magic on you. So you have a touch of the jinn because somebody played magic on you. So Moses answered and told him, ayah number 102, Moses said, you have known, O Pharaoh, that whatever Allah sent down of miracles, evidence, proofs, referring to the power of his stick, referring to the fact that he pulled his hand from underarm and they were clear from disease. All of these miracles, he says, it is the work of Allah. Allah is the one who brought those forth. It's not me. And these are signs for you to see. And I think that you, Pharaoh, are going to be thrown into hellfire. Why is Moses using confrontational answer? Because Pharaoh started the confrontation. He is attacking the reputation and the credibility of Moses as a madman. Somebody did magic on him. So Moses had to answer with a powerful answer. So he told them that I think that you, Pharaoh, are going to be thrown into hellfire. So Pharaoh wanted to kick the children of Israel out of the land. And Allah says, so he wanted to kick them out of the land, but we made him drown, he and his soldiers, all of them. All of the people with Pharaoh, they were drowned. And number 104, and afterwards we told the children of Israel, take residence in the land, meaning the Holy Land. Then if the latter promise comes by, we are going to round you up from all over the earth. See, the children of Israel were lost in the desert for 40 years for refusing to get into the Holy Land. So Allah instituted a punishment on them, and He said that you will be living in despise and oppression for the rest of your life until the day of judgment. And before the day of judgment comes, we will most certainly round you up from all over the world. And indeed, the Prophet, peace be upon him, says, the day of judgment will not come, the hour will not come until Israel has set a state for the Jewish people. So that sign is with us. We do have and we do see the state of Israel. And this is not something that anybody could have predicted 1400 years ago. Because 1400 years ago, they violated the covenant that the Prophet took from them and the agreement that he would protect them as he would protect anybody in Medina, and they would have a share of responsibility to defend Medina because it was a shared city between Muslims and Jews and others. And everybody signed, and they also signed. But when the pagans of Mecca started to attack the Prophet, at times it was with their help, and at other times it was with their instigation. So finally they started to attack the community members themselves, including a woman in the market and so on and so forth. So the Prophet ﷺ told them, you cannot be a trusted neighbors anymore. You have to get out of Medina. So there is a lot of background to why Muslims do not trust the Jews. Definitely, we cannot punish the Jews of today for what has been done by their forefathers. But at the same time, you have to heed the lesson because there is a repetitive pattern on their side to cause trouble even without reason. So, and we told the children of Israel, live in the land, and when the last promise of the closeness of the day of judgment comes, we will round you up. The rounding up of the Jews as a sign of the day of judgment is already happening. Jews from all over the world, they are not only yearning, they are going to Israel to to settle there and build settlements, albeit at the expense of the Palestinian people, the Palestinian land, and agriculture, and water, and everything else. So, for 60 some years now, you see that the Jews are coming from all over the world, all the way, and the land of Palestine became their hub and their nation and their community, albeit taken by force. So, ayah number 105, and in truth we have sent it down, and in truth it has come down, referring to the Quran, that the Quran is not Muhammad's fabrication, it is us, Allah says, who sent it down, and it is in truth that it came down. And we have sent you, O Muhammad, but as a good news giver and a warner, to answer the challenge that some people raised for Prophet Muhammad when they said, why doesn't this Quran come all at once? They wanted the ayat to be fully ready, fully cooked, fully packed, and to come all at once. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here says, and we have divided the Quran into small portions so that you may recite it unto people slowly, and it is we who have sent it down in this way. So some ayat would come to tell people from now forward, nobody, uh, nobody should consume alcohol. From now forward, nobody should marry the widow of his father. Okay? From now on, nobody should marry his sister or his mother or his aunt. Okay? Those legislations, if they all come down all at once, imagine the havoc it will wreak on the community. It took 3 revelations for wine prohibition. In the first time, the revelation says, they ask you regarding wine and gambling. Tell them that they have some perceived benefits and a lot of harm, and their harm far outweigh their benefit. This was the first ayah talking about wine in the Quran. Okay? Then the second ayah comes down to say, do not get into prayer until, if you are intoxicated, until you are sober. That was the second level, which is to prohibit people from coming to prayer while they don't understand what they are saying. Okay? Until they sober up and they are clear. The third and final prohibition, it says that wine or alcohol and gambling are both evil and they are impure, so steer away from them. Don't come near them. And that was the final blow to the consumption, manufacturing of alcohol in the Muslim community. So it took time for the community to detoxicate. So when the revelation came first and said that these are more harmful than beneficial, right? And their benefits are not real, then some people started to wean themselves off. Then when it says, do not come to prayer, which is 5 times a day, then it shortens the period when somebody can drink, because prayer comes 5 times a day. So who is going to miss all this prayer for drinking alcohol or playing gambling? So more people started to wean themselves off. Then when the final prohibition came, saying steer away from them because they are impure, they are intoxicating, they carry addiction with them, then everybody was ready to comply. Even those who still had some stored wine at home or in their business, they started to pour it in Medina streets until people who relate the story, they say it became like rivers of alcohol poured in the streets of Medina, which tells you how much people were really in consumption and maybe addiction of alcohol. But from there forward, Muslims stayed away from alcohol, as you all know. So the reason the Quran came in small portions at a time, few ayat here, few ayat there, based on certain occasions at times, and based on Allah's will. He wants to correct a concept or answer a question or respond to a situation or phenomenon or correct something that is wrong. Then it comes on occasions and it brings occasions on sometimes. So, for example, people used to use usury or usury, okay, which is riba, R-E-B-A. So what happened is the Quran told people in several ayat that came together that if, all you who believe, stop taking riba, okay, and only take back your capital. Don't take riba along with it. And if you do not do, then wait for a war against you from Allah and from the Messenger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before that, it says Allah would bless your earning your living without riba, but it will never bless the riba that you make out of a loan. So it started to set the ground for the prohibition. Then it threatens war and it prohibits dealing in riba, whether you are paying it or you are the one receiving the riba. So ayah number 107, it says, say, O Muhammad, believe in it, or
Can I interject?
we have a couple of ayat to finish the surah. Can I? Would you remember your question? Okay, okay. Just a few ayat. So it says, say, O Muhammad, believe in it or don't believe in it. Those who have been given the knowledge before you, when it is recited upon them, they fall down to their beards in prostration to Allah. And they say, all praise belongs to our Lord. The promise of Allah will come to pass. And they fall onto their beards in weeping and crying, and it increases them in humility. Say, O Muhammad, call unto Allah or call unto Ar-Rahman. You know that Ar-Rahman is one of the great holy names of Allah. And we know that Allah is the proper name of Allah, of the deity, the creator. That is his name. And the word ilah is used in both Hebrew and Arabic. It's a joint word because Hebrew and Arabic are cousin languages. They both grew up in the Middle East, and that's what they share a lot of vocabularies. And like Jahannam is used both ways. Uh, Horse, which is Husan, they call it Sus, we call it Husan. It's very close. There is a lot of words between Arabic and Hebrew. Okay, so when the pagans of Mecca said that when Prophet Muhammad told them, pray to Allah, He is the merciful one, Ar-Rahman, they say, we don't know who is Ar-Rahman. We never heard of this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them here, say, O Muhammad, call unto Allah or call unto Ar-Rahman, which means they are one and the same. Whatever you use of the holy, beautiful names of Allah, it's all valid. but do not shout your prayer aloud, and do not whisper it so that you don't hear yourself, but use something in the middle. Be moderate. Don't shout and scream your prayer when you are in prayer. Don't make your voice too loud, like some qari of Quran, they scream their lungs out. There is no need for that. There's no need for that. One day, a Bedouin Muslim asked the Prophet and told him, is Allah close so that we would whisper when we ask Him, when we talk to Him? Or is He too far that we must shout aloud to talk to Him? And Allah sent down the verse. We went over this in Surah number 2, Surah Al-Baqarah, and He said, if my servants asking you concerning me, I am near, which means let them not shout and scream. They don't need to do that. I hear the inside of their heart before I hear the outside of their voice. So, so do not shout and scream your prayer aloud, and do not make it too silent to be heard even by you, and use a middle ground level of voice. The last ayah, ayah number 111, and say, O Muhammad, Alhamdulillah, all praise and thanks are to Allah. We offer all praise and thanks to Allah, the one who has never begotten a son, nor did he ever have an associate in his dominion, in his kingdom. And he would never use any helper for anything, lest it would cause him to beg, and glorify him as much as you can. Should we repeat the last one? Okay. So this is the end of Surah 17 as we reach ayah number 111. And the following surah is Surah Al-Kahf, or the cave. So I would like to get your question before we move forward.
So usury, being credit or interest rates. Here in America, many people use or including Muslims use credit.
Yes.
So that includes interest. So how do we manage with that? Even if like we don't have a choice, if we use credit, it is an interest rate that is charged.
Yeah, all credit cards by law, they give you what is called a grace period to pay it in full. So all what you need to do is to never charge unless you have the money to pay off. If you pay it off, you don't pay interest. You don't enter into the riba zone. And all credit cards, they tell you you have 29 to 30 days to pay off without interest. I want to remind everybody that usury was prohibited in Europe and America. But in America in particular, it was prohibited. Drinking alcohol was prohibited until the year 1934. They call it the Prohibition era. It was prohibited by law. And we know that the crisis of 2008-2009 was predicated actually on the usage of riba and the selling of loans to bigger banks. So the borrower of the money could not pay the initial bank, and the bank who bought from the initial bank, and the bank who bought from the intermediary bank, and the ultimate bank. So all banks collapsed. So riba is very destructive. We know this from living experiences. We know that our economy is always on the verge of collapsing every 10 years. Now, there is not a nation as much in debt as the United States, and it's all about riba. What is riba? Riba is when you outspend your means and you fill the gap by borrowing, then you render yourself as a slave to the lender. And in the law in the United States, a lender has the right to confiscate all of your property for any amount of debt, or at least put it on lien and or sell it to get his money back. Why? Because the system now has been based on usury for life. But if everybody buys only within his means, then we will not be a nation of slaves to the wealthy people, those who can lend money, because they have money, but they don't want to invest it. Why? Because it's easier to give you $100 and take it 105, 110, and maybe 120, like credit cards, right? It's easier to do it this way than build a project, employ 100 people, and manage the business and risk the risk of loss. But if you give somebody some money and you put the condition as to how much he needs to pay you for it, then definitely you are bound to pay him back by the virtue of the contract. But that contract leaves you bankrupt and leaves your children bankrupt. And as we have seen people, you lose your home, you lose your business, and in so many cases, you lose your family. You end up in divorce. Because if you don't have a means, how do you keep a family?
Okay, so if you pay it off, there's no interest rate, so
Yeah.
that's not usury,
Yes,
is the comment there.
yes, that's what I said.
Yes, I know about that, but for the grace period, I understand that concept, but for like houses, mortgages, with the interest included in mortgages,
Yes.
Sharia, okay,
Sharia.
buying a house,
Yeah.
the interest is already included fully into that contract. And separate interest rates, if I pay it off now, I don't have to pay the interest rates. How do we, there is a separation there. Many people buy the house, but they have to have good credit. But they don't have enough money currently. They go ahead and sign, means the interest is included. They cannot get an exception. Maybe if they're in a difficult situation, that they wouldn't have to pay the insurance. But that's the West. They require it. And secondly, I was watching TV and I saw a woman speaking about struggling paying off credit. She earns good money, but couldn't buy a house because her credit was bad.
Huh.
She didn't have a down payment or anything, and the system is forcing you to have credit. That's going back to the point of, is that an exception to Islam? For us people, if there is no choice, and that's the only way you can buy a house, is to establish your credit first, so you can buy a house. Is that okay?
Your credit can be established without riba. If you pay all your bills on time, this is a better credit than the one who delays the payment and, for example, pays back $1,000 on a credit card in a year, which may make it 1,200, 1,300, right? So if you pay it on time, then you build your credit. So you don't have to engage in riba to build your credit. So
No, no. I mean, for houses.
I
So
will
there's
come to
a,
the house issue. I heard you. I will come to the house issue.
okay.
But I was picking on the idea that you're trying to argue, which is I have to build a good credit to buy a house, and the assumption is if I can't, then why? How could I buy? Well, they force you to pay when you buy, but they don't force you to pay if you only buy what you have money for. So you may need a house to live with your family, but you don't necessarily need to own a house. It is a decision that you decide. One of the things that I paid attention to is the fact that in the early days, when Muslims had a fight in the Battle of Badr, and the mushrikeen, they were fighting against them. Muslims were about 300 people or something. The pagans were about 1,000 persons. Muslims had 3 horses. The pagans had about 318 horses. Why? Because the mushriks, they don't have a problem with riba. So if Muslims said, we need the horses, we need them to defend ourselves and to fight efficiently, they would have gone to borrow money and pay usury. But they didn't. They used what they were given. Allah provides for us, but we are a greedy type of creature. We want to have whatever anybody has. And the advertisement industry and the marketing industry has caught us up with our greed. I see an advertisement or marketing piece, I want to have what they are advertising. So I go to my family and they don't have enough resources. Then I go to the bank. I go to the loan sharks. Whom am I binding? I'm binding myself. So it is only myself to blame. Not everything you need, you must buy. Let us say, for example, you go rent a car to travel long distance, right? It's a wise decision because if you rent a car and you buy the insurance, you can use the car, go your trip, come back, give the car back to the company, you're done. But when you say, no, 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 I want to buy a comfortable car, a big car for my family, and I want it four-wheel, and I want this, and I want this, then you may end up having to pay riba. Do you need a four-wheel drive in Virginia, for example, to go to work? No, you don't. Especially if there is some transportation, even though it may not be as convenient. But what I'm saying is, we make the decisions to buy, and once you commit yourself, then you cannot also want to make the decision not to pay interest, because the contract you engage in is a riba contract. So this is a decision that we make. Could anyone tell me, if you have the statistics, because I don't have it, the percentage of people who own homes in America? We have 330 million people here, right? So how many of those 330 million people, which is appropriately about 120 million families, how many of these 120 million families really own a home? It's not the majority. It's not the majority. So otherwise, if they are the majority, who is renting the vast majority of housing? Who's renting? It's almost everybody. Look, for example, at the Skyline Towers, right? You have several towers in an area less than maybe 30% of a mile, zero point 0.3 mile. You have about 960 or 1,000 apartment units in every building. So those could be like 10, 20,000 people. How many homes do you have around the area and how much space do they take? It's a fraction. So if you take this area as an example, you will find that those who own single family homes in particular are the minority of the minority of the minority. So when I, the layperson, want to be like them, and I don't have the means to be like them, what do? I end up going to the bank. I end up engaging in riba. And after I sign the contract, by the way, a contract to buy a home over 30-year payment plan, mortgage payment plan, right? For 30 years. Who owns whom? Do you own the home or does the home own you?
The bank owns it.
No, the home owns you. The bank owns the home and the home owns you because more than 30% of your livelihood resources are tapped and tagged to the home for 30 years. When do you get to own the home? If you buy a home at 30 and you die at 60, how much did you own of the home? But how much does the home own you? Between mortgage, insurance, utility, all of the rest. And then you are subject to the financial collapse of the market every 10 years. And you are subject to the control of the home over your livelihood because if you own a home in Alexandria, Virginia, who could think that you would want to work a good opportunity in, let us say, Gainesville or Herndon, or you will waste the rest of your life in transportation. So the home makes you immobile. You cannot get a job in California because you have a home here, right? So you have to sell the home to be able to even rent in California. So the idea is a farce. It is like selling you a mirage. What they are actually selling you is a lifelong commitment to a mortgage that you could not pay with your own resources. And to add salt to the wound, right? What you pay initially, 100% of it or 99% of it goes to pay off the loan, and 1% towards the actual purchase of the home. And over years, that percentage start to reverse. So for you get to pay what you want to own. So they are making money on your back. It's a farce. It's a mirage. Sorry, the facts are very gloomy, and Islam is very simple. Don't try to own what you cannot pay.
I think that issue is very important to discuss with a larger audience, because some people are already finding themselves in that situation, paying the principal, but they're not seeing anything. They feel that, oh, I own this house, but
The
I
bank,
think it's very important for them to know.
the bank will never allow you to pay the principal before you have paid the loan sharks. That's not the contract of mortgage. The contract says when you pay, for example, $3,000 mortgage, right? 1% will go to the principal, and the rest will go for the loan interest. Not the loan interest. Is this fair?
Question. For example, two options. If you wanted to buy a car, one option would be, for example, if it's $23,000 for the car, and I want no interest,
Yes.
I can put on top of like $25,000 and then go into a monthly payment. Or the other option, put the $25,000, buy that amount of car, but the interest is low. Interest. Pay off early, but it does not equal the 25,000. The 25,000 is no interest. What would you pick?
It depends. Do I value the $2,000 as a number, or do I value my principal, which is against interest? Which one is the bigger risk?
So
Life is about risk
don't
management.
I don't understand.
You didn't. Okay,
No.
let me repeat it.
Okay.
So if you pay 23 cash, you get it. That's finished. That's not the question. The question is, when you ask the car dealer to give you the car as a lump sum installment payment. So he says, listen, I have to collect $2,000 more, right? Then you say, yeah, I want to avoid usury. So you sign a contract for $25,000, right? Why would you not want to sign this? Well, you may say, I want to save the $2,000, right? So I will go with a mortgage kind of payment, which is riba. Riba will make it more than 25 in it eventually. But the $2,000 will stay in your head as something you have saved. And this is where the confusion is. People think that if I go with mortgage, I am saving money. So the Quran addresses this issue in Surah Al-Baqarah again, in the ayat talking about riba. It says, those who use riba, those who devour riba, it is like the one who has afflicted with jinn touch or epilepsy. They cannot stand straight. That's because they said riba is like business. If I use this money to invest it in something and don't give it to you, I will make the $2,000 or more. So if I give it to you, give me the $2,000 on top of it, and everybody is winning. You get the car, I get the 2,000 I want. And Allah says, but Allah has made sale lawful and He has made usury prohibited, which means the Quran didn't want to get into a flimsy discussion over whether or not riba, which is money you make on money, is similar to investment or sale. So the Quran says Allah has made investment and sale halal, and He has prohibited usury because it is destructive. Let me answer specifically your question now in light of this. So if you go to a dealer and he gives you a car or proposes a car, the cost of which is $23,000 if you buy it on an installment with riba, right? Okay. And then you say, no, I don't want to have interest in my contract. Then he says, okay, I will add the interest to the price of the car and I will give you a flat rate, monthly rate for the whole price to pay. So the total price is now 25,000. But the contract does not have riba. This contract is lawful Islamically. Why? Because you are buying something for your money. But in the case you go for usury contract, you will be buying money that you use for purchase. And this is the definition of riba. You will buy the 1,000 for 1,005, 1,010, and you will be paying usury in the process. But in the case you buy the car and the car is priced at 25, then when you pay it on installment without interest is lawful. But when I borrow money and sign with the bank, and the bank becomes a loan or lender in the process of the purchase, and I am paying the bank, I am buying money from the bank. In return, I am paying the bank interest. I'm not dealing with the dealer financially. It is now between me and the bank.
Okay, so that is lawful.
Yes, the way I described it, I don't know if you understood. I can repeat it again.
Okay, so if I buy a car with 25,000 in its insurance, I want to pay it off early. And at $24,000 at the end of paying it
So
off
you will
early.
only pay $1,000 interest. So that's 50% of the usury. So it does include usury anyway. And that's prohibited.
It's still wrong, yes. It's still wrong, yes. Okay, I just wanted to clarify because I didn't know if I was hearing it right.
Riba
I had a discussion with that person that it would be better because there's no interest.
no,
And we
no,
were like, no.
it would be better than full interest.
Interest. It's wrong, yes. Well, we're wrong, yes. But 1 cent usury still wrong.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Where in America can you borrow money without interest rates?
In paradise.
Paradise.
Do you know the town that's called Paradise in California?
There, you can borrow money there. Go search it.
Have you not known that much of the hurricanes, tornadoes, and those kind of disasters, why they are called disasters? Because these are destructive forces. And if you think these are random natural phenomena, think again. Because, for example, in Paradise, California, thousands of homes were torched completely. But you find one of the TV stations having an interview with a homeowner, and he's standing in front of his home. The home ahead of him is totally to the ground, ashes. The home behind him is in ashes. The home next to him is in ashes. His home is standing intact completely. Nothing. So if you think that these fires or winds or waters are natural phenomenon, nature doesn't have a brain. But Allah leaves for us signs to look at and say, wow, how could the fire avoid a single one home and go around to burn everything?
Why is it safe?
Allah wants us to know that there is someone controlling the fire. It is Allah. It is like waters. It is like mudslides. We think they take everything in their path, right? But not necessarily. Not all of New Orleans were underwater in 2005. So those disasters are tools in the hands of Allah. Allah says in the Quran, Allah will bring disastrous destruction on things that are based on usury. And He would grow charities. So if you pay riba, what you have, which is your home, could in a second be turned into matchsticks, burned matchsticks, or destroyed matchsticks. Tennessee lost about 35,000 homes in one tornado. And the governor stood in front of the media saying, if this is not God's wrath, then neither my mother nor my grandmother taught me what God's wrath is. Do you think that Tennessee didn't have homes but those? No. Allah spared some homes in the middle of the disaster area to tell us this is not random. This is not wind that went rogue. No. It is intentional. Allah says, I will destroy the riba and I will let grow what is not riba.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good.
I think we're done. So we finished Surah 17. We are resuming with Surah number 18, inshallah, named Al-Kahf. Next time.
What do you want to make? I want to make some blocks. No, I'll make blocks. Do that. But you have to drink with it. You have to drink with it.
Thank you.
Things might be changing in the future.
You think so?
Okay, fine. You don't have to
Um, My dad's going through chemotherapy,
Oh,
so
may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala
so I haven't told them the group yet.
Sorry.
But yeah, um, we're still trying to figure it out as we go along.
Yeah.
We just started the chemotherapy, so
May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for him.
thank you. So I might be doing it from New Orleans. Who knows?
My son has his mother-in-law passed away because of
Yeah.
same.